What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Inside the Five. It's Will.
It's stuff.
And it's Griff.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about the NFL Draft and NBA Playoffs Round 1. What do we say, boys?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Five. Let's get things started. Boys, it's NFL draft season, and it snuck up on us. I felt like just yesterday we were watching the Chiefs celebrating their Super Bowl championship, but it's the start of the new season. I know people say free agency and whatever, but the season doesn't really kick off until now when the draft happens, when rookies report to their new teams. It's just the most exciting time for the NFL. And our teams are in prime spots to make some selections that can really impact the future of our organizations and will impact the fandom that we have. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a different approach with this draft. We know if you want to go search up a mock draft, you can find one on PFF, ESPN, CBS. We're going to talk to you about the specific players we want to see on our teams and specific players that could fall to us that we do not want. It's a different approach. I think that this is fresh, and it's going to be a fresh start for our teams this upcoming season. But first, we're going to talk about the top 3 picks. It's very important, obviously, because this shapes the future of many franchises, maybe even some of those that you guys support. So let's start things off. The first overall pick. It's pretty obvious it's going to be Bryce Young. All signs are pointing to Bryce Young. But today, some Redditor changed the Vegas odds and said that Will Levis is preparing himself and told his friends and family that he is going to go number 1 to Carolina. And Griff, what did the odds drop to?
So the odds before this was posted on Reddit, which, by the way, Reddit. The odds before this was posted on Reddit were plus 4,000. After this post happened, Vegas immediately shifted the line to Will Levis first overall pick plus 400. I mean, that's probably the most drastic the most drastic change in odds for the number 1 overall pick we've seen since the betting era.
Yeah, and it's unreal. I wasn't expecting this, and I still think that Carolina is going to select Bryce Young. But do you guys think differently? Do you think that this Redditor is actually on to something? And do you think that Will Levis can actually be taken number 1 and mess up the entire flow of the draft?
I think no chance. I could see Will Levis being the last pick of the first round. And I feel like on this podcast we have a lot of strong ideas and points, and this could be one of them. But I don't see it in Will Levis. I don't think that he cares about winning, which is a big thing when talking about drafting 20-year-olds onto a professional football team. And I just don't really see him fitting on a Panthers team where obviously the team with the first pick, they need somebody that's going to go in there and be able to make plays by himself. I think that Will Levis has the possibility to be a Pro Bowler, but I think that he is the type of guy that would benefit off not being the first overall pick. And I know that sounds weird, but Stav, would you rather be the first overall pick and be a part of the Carolina Panthers organization, or would you rather fall a little bit, maybe be a backup for a couple of years while you still have those starter qualities and instincts, and then find your way on a better team in a few years? I don't know, obviously what side he's looking for. I don't see him being the first pick. And if I'm Will Levis, I don't think that I'd want to be the first pick. That's just a bunch of pressure out of nowhere. Because, he was going into the draft until literally today. It really wasn't in the question. So I feel like if he is the first pick, his career is automatically ruined.
I mean, I'm pretty much right there with you. I think Bryce Young, the Panthers would be stupid not to take Bryce Young. I think there's too much upside, just like the talent alone. Like, they've had too many years where they don't have really any direction of the franchise. Like, they squeak into the playoffs one year, they're the worst team in the league the next. They really don't have anywhere necessarily where they're going. They've also had QB issues literally since ever. Like, there's never been, like, since Cam pretty much was like elite.
Yeah.
So not taking Bryce Young would be probably their dumbest decision they could possibly make at that point. Like, if I was a fan of the Panthers and I saw they didn't take Bryce Young, I would be extremely upset.
The ceiling on Will Levis is about the same of Bryce Young, but the floors are way different, right?
Mhm.
I think that we are, as fans, and even I don't speak for front offices, but it seems as if they're evaluating the pro days way too much. Pro days are
Yes.
meant to boost the players, like show off their their skills, right? Throw the ball deep to a wide open receiver. But when it comes down to X's and O's and what they did in college, it's not being evaluated as much. And we've seen franchises make mistakes based off of just skill alone, right? Zach Wilson, Trey Lance is even being looked, or is even in the talks to being traded, and he was a third pick. Yeah, he was the third pick that year. So Zach Wilson was the second, and he's not even going to be starting for that New York Jets team. Breaking news: Aaron Rodgers just got traded there. That's kind of been in the works. That's why we really didn't lead off to this, because we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. But those are just two examples of quarterbacks who really didn't have great college careers, but excelled or got accelerated into the draft and got taken very high. And maybe some teams are looking back on that, regretting it. And I think that this is going to be a hot take. Anthony Richardson's the same way. Anthony Richardson, Will Levis did not have impressive college careers. They were just boosted because they're athletic. And everyone's comparing Josh Allen to Will Levis because he can throw the ball far. That's such a dumb comparison. And if you want to compare the two, I'll let it slide a little bit. But Josh Allen wasn't a starter day one. He was eased into that process. Whoever drafts Will Levis is going to have him be a day one starter. And is he ready for that? He's been playing. I mean, yeah, he's played SEC defenses, but he hasn't excelled against them. He's excelled against lower competition, which have boosted his draft stock. Anthony Richardson did not have a good season. And I'm looking at the PFF mock draft. They have the Houston Texans taking him number 2. It doesn't make much sense to me why these teams are choosing just pure athleticism at the quarterback position. And these guys need to be developed. Day one starters in the NFL, unless you're a guy like Bryce Young, unless you're a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's pro ready, Joe Burrow. I mean, Tua's kind of coming into his own now. Justin Herbert, there are big bumps along the way. But the difference between these guys here and the guys I listed who made a great jump from college to pro, they've been surrounded with talent. You're telling me that the Carolina Panthers are going to surround Will Levis, hypothetically, at number 1 with talent? Absolutely not. Adam Thielen's their wide receiver 1. They traded away DJ Moore, who was supposed to be their wide receiver 1, to acquire a quarterback at number 1. So the direction in which this is going, it's not a favorable situation for any quarterback to land.
Yeah, I agree. And, that's exactly my point to Bryce Young. Bryce Young has the tools and the abilities to succeed under a wide receiver room that includes names like Adam Thielen, Laviska Shenault. Is DJ Chark still on that team? DJ Chark. Mm-hmm. Will Levis, exactly as you said, Stav. I just don't see, that same thing happening. I don't think that he is someone that can win a game on his own. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can do that. And usually the quarterback that can do that coming out of the draft, what pick is he? He's the first pick in the draft. He is. And that is exactly who Bryce Young is. I don't see CJ Stroud even having a chance after the S2 scores. I don't see really anybody having a chance at this point. I think that it is locked in stone. And, the Carolina Panthers are on the clock as we speak right now. Bryce Young is their guy. They've already decided. I mean, come on. Everybody and their mother should know this by now. The draft is in 2 days. The Carolina Panthers have the first pick. They have 10 minutes on the clock. They're not going to take all of that 10 minutes. They're going to submit that pick for Bryce Young right away, I could almost call it. He is the best quarterback in this draft. Is he the best player? We'll get to that when I talk about my Seahawks. But he is the best quarterback in this draft, and it's not even close in my opinion.
So we think, as of right now, as a podcast, Bryce Young is going to go number 1, and I think that's very reasonable. And the betting odds support that. Everything that's kind of come out since the end of the NFL season has supported that ever since that the Panthers traded up to get that number 1 pick. Now, with the number 2 pick to Houston, PFF has Anthony Richardson going number 2. I've already spoken about him, but I'm curious who you guys think is going to go number 2, because I have my own opinion on it.
Well,
So the ones that I'm looking at right now, they have Will Levis going 2. For the Texans, I feel like they honestly, like, I know Davis Mills isn't really the option, but also we saw him the first time a couple years ago. He was good. He clearly has something to work with. I feel like you can't necessarily give up right away. I mean, like, Will Levis is obviously solid, but I mean, going third, they have Tyrese Wilson, which is edge threat. I feel like upgrading the defense for the Texans would probably be more advantageous for them just to keep building, because they're not going to make the playoffs right away. They have no rush to go anywhere. I feel like getting your defense young would help the offense, obviously. Like, that corresponds right then and there.
all right. I want to take this from two sides. I want to take this from the side that I would take, and then the side that I think is going to be taken. Real quick, my own side, because nobody actually cares about my side. I agree with Will. I think that they should go defense with the second overall pick. But from understanding how, the draft usually goes, they have the second pick and they also have the 12th pick in the draft, which means they're taking a quarterback with the second pick. They, like you said, Will, and I agree with you 100%. I think that there's something in Davis Mills, but I don't think that his ceiling is as high as the 3 quarterbacks that we have available after Bryce Young gets taken with the first overall pick. And I talked about CJ Stroud and his S2 score. I think that this is the perfect spot for him to be. I think that Houston is his spot. I don't think that Houston cares about S2 scores. I that's really the only thing that's hindering his fight with being the first overall pick is how poorly he scored. And if you guys don't know what the S2 is, it's the new Wonderlic, and kind of what they're using over the Wonderlic now to test the quarterback's IQ and different things like that. And CJ Stroud was by far the worst graded quarterback this year. It wasn't actually even close. But with that being said, I think that the Houston Texans are a bonehead franchise. They take him. And I honestly don't think that he's going to be that bad of a quarterback going down the line. And just knowing that they have the 12th pick in the draft, that means that they pretty much, they have a chance. Like, they're like, you know what, we can go out and take a quarterback, and then we can go, we have another pick and 10 picks. And if we're, kind of feeling weird about that, then we can take our surefire pick there. If not, maybe you could see them taking someone like a Jackson Smith and Jigba early at 12, or, another wide receiver, maybe even Zay Flowers at 12, who's a fantastic route runner, who's been getting a lot of buzz out of Boston College, to pair up with CJ Stroud. But I think defense should be the move at 12. I don't think it will be. Stop.
That is awesome. You read my mind. I think that CJ Stroud should be the number 2 pick in this draft. I think he is the second best quarterback in this draft, and purely off of what he did in college, right? Some people may knock him for not beating Michigan. Some people may say because he didn't win a national championship, whatever they may say. What he did to that Georgia defense while his number 1 receiver was hurt in the second half of that game. He's pro ready. That's a pro defense. That's a defense that dismantled the TCU team, that embarrassed them and embarrassed opponents all year. And he competed. It came down to a last-second field goal for Georgia to beat Ohio State. And CJ Stroud really proved that he can carry an offense. He's a good game manager. He's athletic. He can throw the ball, and he's poised. Nobody is. I don't know why CJ Stroud. I understand the new Wonderlic, whatever it is. Who cares, to be honest? If he can play football, if he can read defenses, and he can compete at a high level, you take a chance on him if you're the Houston Texans, especially with a new coach, with DeMeco Ryans, who is a defensive-minded guy. You need a game manager as your quarterback. You need someone who can get you down the field, chew up clock, take care of the football, and that's what CJ Stroud does, and he does it at an excellent level. And Griff, I am so happy you said that they're going to draft Jackson Smith and Jigba at 12. I agree. I think that's what they should do. I think that JSN is the best receiver in the draft. I will get to the Patriots as we talked about that, but I hope he falls to the Patriots because that would be a dream scenario. However, I don't think he does. I think the Houston Texans grab him at 12. And I think that they pair up old college teammates, get him comfortable, and they will have a pretty decent receiving core with Brandon Cooks and JSN.
Yeah. I mean, I had something to say about Njigba, but I actually want to save that for when we do want to talk about the Patriots.
All right. So now the Cardinals have the 3 pick. Is that correct? Cardinals are just
That
a
is
dumpster fire.
correct. No, it's the Cardinals.
Yeah, they're a dumpster fire. What don't they need essentially? I know. I guess you can cross off quarterback just because Kyler Murray is there and they are paying him way too much money to draft a quarterback this high. They go defense. Will
They have
Anderson.
They have to, and I'm not 100% sold on Will Anderson for the Cardinals because I don't think the Cardinals are a smart franchise. I think that their pick is Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, obviously an edge threat guy. He's a guy that has a lot of upside. He has the possibility to be an all-pro type player off the edge. He's getting pro comparisons to Matthew Judon. I'm not sure if I agree with it. I've actually watched a lot of Tyree Wilson film. I haven't watched a lot of full games, but I have seen highlights, and he can line up anywhere on the defensive line, and he will cause havoc. And he is a great player. I would kind of compare him to a Jadeveon Clowney, not a South Carolina Jadeveon Clowney, but I feel like he can disrupt a game in the same way, whereas Clowney, when he wants to, or when he wanted to in his heyday, he was the best player on the field. But did he want it every single play in and play out? No, I don't think he did. I kind of think the same about Tyree Wilson here, and I think that he has a lot of God-given ability. And I mean, it's kind of the perfect pick for the Cardinals the top 3 picks. How often do all top 3 picks work out in a draft stuff?
Never. I can't think of the last time
I could easily see Tyree Wilson getting taken here with the 3rd pick in the draft and it not being a success.
And what I don't understand, I feel like, especially defensive players were really valued if they went to a high-profile school like Alabama. And there was a long period of time where Will Anderson was going to be the 1st overall pick in this draft. Yeah. And he's an excellent player, and he's a game wrecker. And for a team like the Arizona Cardinals, where they need a lot of help and they are bit by the injury bug, but they did just hire a defensive-minded head coach, going defense with the 3rd overall pick is the right way to go. I don't think that there's any question about I don't think they should draft offense. I don't think that's on the table. I think they draft defense. Will Anderson should be that guy they drafted number 3. He's the game wrecker.
I mean, Stav, I'm with you there. I think, both of you guys, in my perspective, I think defensive player needs to be drafted here. As one, if obviously the Colts scenario, my bad. The Cardinals scenario, losing J.J. Watt, I think going edge is kind of just boom right there. You fill in the blank right there, and you move on. You keep going. Obviously, did they get a new coach yet?
The Cardinals. Yeah, they hired Jonathan Gannon from the Eagles.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's right. So I feel like going defense here, you can't go wrong. So obviously, like we said, top 3 picks, they don't really work out. But I feel like when you're in doubt or when you need to make a fill in, defense is always the move. Taking a risk on an offensive player doesn't always work out.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up the top 3 picks. If you want further insight on a mock draft, there's plenty of them out there. We're not going to sit here and go 1 through 32. We're going to talk about the teams that we really pay attention to and have something to bring to the table. Now, we'll go in order of the picks that in chronological order. So, Griff, starting with you at number 5, this pick from the Denver Broncos. The Seahawks are on the clock at number 5. Give me 3 players you like and 3 players you don't like who could fall in our realistic opportunities for the Seahawks.
All right, perfect. I'm going to start off actually with 3 players that I do not like. And I'm going to get things started with the guy that we just talked about in Tyree Wilson. As I said, a Jadeveon Clowney comparison from myself. I'm on the CBS website right now. Let's see what pro comparison they're giving him. Matthew Judon. Oh, yeah, that's what I said. Basically, why I don't like Tyree Wilson is his will to play. And the thing with a lot of defensive linemen is, how long are they checked in for? And that is the big difference, in my opinion, between Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson in this draft. I think Will Anderson is a guy that is 1,000,000% in at all times. He is invested into the game. I've never seen him not give up. His big issue is the strip sack, which is such a prevalent part of the league nowadays, that's something that can be worked on. But Tyree Wilson, I think that he has all the skills. He just doesn't have the need. And that is my number one guy that I really don't want the Seahawks to take. If they do take him, I would love him over this guy, which is my second guy not to take, Anthony Richardson. I feel like it's just it goes without really having to say anything. We have a Pro Bowl quarterback right now on contract for another 2 years. If Bryce Young isn't falling, if CJ Stroud isn't falling, there's no reason to reach with the 5th pick, right? That's my thought process. We have a very good young core out there right now. There's no reason to take a quarterback and risk ruining everything in the locker room and I mean, even our front office as well. The third guy that I would be absolutely, I mean, I don't even know how to explain how upset I would be if we took him, is Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. I love him. I think that he is a fantastic cornerback. I think that he is a top 10 pick. I just personally don't think that we need to take a corner in the top 10. We have the pick at 20, and we'll talk about that after as well. Maybe you go DB there. I would say that we need a safety more than we need a corner because there's not a lot of guarantees with Jamal Adams' future in all of that. But if we're going defense, and I'll make our shift to the 3 players that I would love to see on my team. If we are going to take defense, it's obvious. I want Will Anderson. I think that Will Anderson has the chance to fall to 5. I think that Bryce Young goes 1. CJ Stroud goes 2. I think that the Cardinals could trade that 3rd pick. I think that they could trade that to a team that needs a quarterback. Oh, there goes Anthony Richardson at 3. Who knows? Maybe Will Levis gets taken at 4, and it's like, okay, now we need to calm down. Good thing Will Anderson just fell to us into our hands at 5. Will Anderson, I will say right now, out of everybody in this draft, that is my number 1 guy. I think that he is the best player in this draft. Pound for pound, I think that he is the best NFL player in this draft this year. I think that Bryce Young is number 2. I think that Bryce Young is going to have a fantastic career. Will Anderson is a complete player. And if we want to talk about complete players here, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia. I mean, what team would not want to have Jalen Carter? I don't know. He is a unanimous All-American. He's won 2 national championships, and he is a big boy. What do the Seahawks need? They need front 7. They need pass rushers, but they also need to stop a run game. That was one of the biggest issues this past season. There was a lot of teams just running up and down that Seahawks defense and that Seahawks front 7. I would really like to see those 2 guys, and you guys can obviously tell I'm going defensive line heavy here. So maybe we'll switch it up with the last guy I'm going to want to take. How about an offensive lineman in Paris Johnson? I just think that he is a guy that, I mean, is a Hall of Famer. I think that he has the true ability to be a Hall of Famer. Now, I love Abraham Lucas, and I love, our 2 tackles that are going into their 2nd year. But I think that some moves can be made. Paris Johnson could be ours, and maybe one of our tackles could be on the way out and maybe a little draft day trade. Those are the 3 guys that, best case scenario for our squad. I would love to see them wearing the blue and green.
So, Griff, I'm curious because there have been some rumblings. You mentioned Anthony Richardson as the quarterback that you don't want. So we know that maybe even a few of these quarterbacks do fall to that number 5 pick. Which quarterbacks are you kind of compelled by that? If they selected at number 5, you'd be like, all right, I'm okay with that. Let's roll.
Just Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, if I'm being honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Will Levis. I have a whole ideology of what a Seahawks quarterback looks like, and Will Levis couldn't be any further from it. He's a pro-style player, which – you would think is good going into the NFL. But out of all the NFL teams, when you're talking about pro-styled offenses, I feel like the Seahawks don't really match that. They're more of a West Coast, power run type team. That's why Geno Smith fits it. That's why Russell Wilson was, almost a perfect fit in the Pete Carroll system. I just don't think Will Levis fits. We'd have to change our whole offense, and that would really affect Kenneth Walker's play. I think it would be terrible. Since we traded Russell Wilson, I've wanted Bryce Young. That's not going to happen. If it's not Bryce Young, it's CJ Stroud. If it's neither of them, Stav, don't give me a quarterback.
Yeah. No, the Seahawks are in a pretty good position right now where they don't need to select a quarterback with that number 5 pick. There are additional needs, as you've stated. And after the season we saw from Geno Smith last year, I don't think that they will move on from him or draft the future that high when you can build a team around what you currently have and really create a nucleus of weapons and dominant players on the defensive side of the ball and get back to that Legion of Boom of essence of winning games by having a dominant defense. Now, let's go down about 9 picks to Will and I's New England Patriots. And I'll get it started. I'll state 3 players that I want first, and then I'll go 3 players I don't want, and then Will go after me. So, starting with 3 players that I want, I'm going to go 3 different positions here. And there's a few. If I could list 5, I would, but I'm going to stick to 3. The top 3 players I want, no order. Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State is really intriguing to me. The Patriots secondary last season wasn't really the bad part of that defense. We saw guys like Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, and Jonathan Jones. The Joneses really step up and make some great plays at the cornerback position. But the depth of that position is really scary to me when Miles Bryant comes on the field, and with Jalen Mills moving back to that free safety position, which I think he will excel at. The corner like once you get past those 3 guys, it is kind of scary to me. And we've seen time and time again when the backups come in, the defense gets exposed. And if you can have 4 very solid corners and allow Marcus Jones to kind of be that utility guy he is at special teams, where he really had an impact on this team and won us games. And then you have Jack Jones and Jonathan Jones. You could put Jonathan Jones in the slot. You have a cornerback 1 and 2 essentially of Joey Porter Jr. and Jack Jones. So that's a cornerback position, but I don't think that's the biggest need of this team. So I'm going to talk about the wide receiver position. And I could say 2 guys here that are interchangeable. You know what? I will. Who cares? 2 guys are interchangeable at the wide receiver position for me. Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I think is going to be selected higher. And then Zay Flowers. I think that Zay Flowers fits his Patriots offense. A local college, when he goes to BC, he's in the area. He can adapt to the weather. And he's a great route runner. And that's something that this Patriots offense is lacking. And I really hope that one of these guys has an opportunity to be selected by the Patriots. A receiver is fun in the first round. That's something that can draw the attention back and hopefully help out Mac Jones or whoever's going to be the starting quarterback of this team, maybe even Bailey Zappi come week 1. I think it's going to be a competition in training camp, but I don't think you select a quarterback with this first round pick. And then the third guy, it's going to be another one of those flip-flop things. This is why I said 5. It's the offensive tackle position. I want either Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones. I think that those 2 guys really can fit in a Belichick-style offense where it's a lot of zone gap blocking schemes, and they can get to the second level and block the offense or the defensive ends. They can get to the linebackers. They can block at the second level and pass protect on that left side of the line, allowing Trent Brown to move back to the right side of the line where he excels at, and that's why we paid him to be there. And then you really solidify your offensive line with a young nucleus of hypothetically Paris Johnson, Michael Onwenu, David Andrews, who is older, obviously, Cole Strange. Cole Strange is our left guard. Michael Onwenu is our right guard. And then you put Trent Brown at the right tackle. That's a very good offensive line. That's an offensive line that can help you compete in a very defensive-oriented division when it comes down to pass rushing, especially from the New York Jets and other teams that we're going to face throughout the season. Now, 3 guys who I do not want. It's kind of in a similar fashion of position by position. Starting with the corner position, Griff, I don't want Devon Witherspoon.
It's a weird feeling, right?
It is. He's when was the last time an Illinois corner came out and was dominant? I mean, that could be a casual take, but I don't remember the last time an Illinois player came out this high in the draft.
Did Peanut Tillman go to Illinois?
You might be right, but that's like 20 years ago that he got drafted.
Yeah, I know. I don't even think we were born when he was drafted.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he didn't. He went to University of Louisiana. He's from Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the most notable Illinois football players. Dick Butkus is the only one that I really recognize on this list. Whitney Merciless, Kirby Joseph.
Bobby Mitchell, Simeon Rice.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to knock this kid for going to the school that he is and excelling where he was, but it's just something about the corner or the wide receivers he was guarding. It's not going to compare to what he's going to be guarding in the AFC East. Next, the wide receiver position. This might be a hot take, but I'm ready to hear the noise on this. I'm scared of Quentin Johnson from TCU. I think he's just a N'Keal Harry 2.0. And I really do think that he benefited from the schedule that he had, the quarterback he had, in the offense that he was in. And he's a freak athlete. A lot of the time, receivers who completely rely on their athleticism do not pan out in the NFL. Guys like N'Keal Harry, Kevin White, other guys that I can't think of right now, but those guys get selected high because they had really good athletic college careers and benefited off of facing corners that were subpar. You're not going up against the NFL type corners at the schools they went to. So that scares me from Quentin Johnson. And the last guy who I don't want, and this is at the offensive tackle position, is Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. He struggled against Georgia, and Georgia's defensive line, as we know, is full of NFL talent.
That's the best. That if you play against Georgia, that's the game that everybody looks at.
Exactly. And he got dominated, and that Tennessee offense couldn't move the ball against them. So I do not think that he's going to pan out very well. They have him going 17th right now, but that game alone scared me in games against Alabama where he struggled against the pass rush, especially against Will Anderson, who was a game wrecker. Don't get me wrong, but you're going up against consistent game wreckers every single week in the NFL. If you can't hold your own every single week in the NFL, you cannot be a starting left tackle, especially for a quarterback like Mac Jones who panics in the pocket and throws interceptions the second he feels pressure. So you need a very solid offensive line. That's why I stated the two guys I stated with Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones, who I think can feel the heat and really excel in this offense. Mute.
Just said I like that, but I say I agree. Stop. I think first things first. If Jackson Smith-Njigba is available, need to take him. I think that's just an obvious. I do think offensive line is key. We do have a couple pieces who are getting a little bit older, so someone like Broderick Jones or maybe even Peter Skoronski could be a good pick. Offensive line, can't go wrong there. And then for my third pick, I kind of like Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland. I kind of like him. He's a guy could use. I think he brings a lot of speed, athleticism to the table. Someone to boost up the cornerback room. Possibly could be losing some in the future. Having a young guy like that kind of step in, especially if we lose a few in the future, he's perfect for that fit. Guys who I do not like, I'm right there with you with Quentin Johnson. TCU kind of scares me, like anyone from there now. After watching the national championship, they're just absolute frauds. So I don't like that. Just scares me. I'm also there with you again with Darnell Wright. Same thing, like you said with Georgia. Not really like that's obviously, like you said, Griff. That's the game that everyone looks at when you play Georgia. Anyone who's getting drafted, they look at like that's pretty much the game they're going to. They're going to look see everything you did against that game. That's just one player you really don't want. I don't know if I really have like a third player that I don't want. I think I'd have maybe like a fourth that I would like to see would possibly be one. I don't think we need a QB. I think, like you said again, QB. I feel like that's just too much mix in the locker room again. Don't really need that to happen. I would not mind possibly trying to get Zay Flowers early. Just wide receiver help.
I know it's very intriguing, and there's a lot of very talented receivers in this draft, not to the standards of last year and the year prior, where we've seen absolute game wreckers. I mean, guys like last year, we kind of struggled a little bit. I mean, Drake London was the first receiver off the board. I'm struggling to think of other rookie receivers that really excelled. I mean, Chris Olave had a really good year as well.
Who's the dude on the Commanders from
Penn
State?
Dotson.
Jahan Dotson.
Yeah,
he had a pretty good year.
Yeah, exactly. But the year prior, obviously, was just something different with Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, guys like that, who are just absolute star receivers who will get the most money possible when their contract's up. it's kind of a mix. I think that this class of receivers is better than last year's class, but it's not close to the year prior and the year before that.
I was gonna say, I feel like this year's is kind of like all these guys that are coming in are good like combo pieces. Like if you have an elite wide receiver, this guy will obviously, if you have an elite wide receiver and you bring someone in, they're going to excel. But like these are the guys that like, oh wow, like he's gonna be really good and he's gonna be like a filthy second option. Like not kind of like, oh, like he's out there every now and then, like he's open, like he gets his job done. Like these are guys who are gonna go above and beyond getting the job done.
Yeah, and to this point, like Will said, I don't think that there's any clear wide receiver ones coming out of this draft, but there is a boatload of talent in the wide receiver position in this draft. There isn't, like you said, Stav, a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle. I mean, if you were to put anybody in that category, I'd probably say Jackson Smith and Jigba. But when you're talking about route runners, Zay Flowers is, scouts are talking about how, I mean, he could be one of the best route runners they've ever seen in their lives. Now, there's a lot of different issues that he has, in my opinion. Zay Flowers, I think he's a bit undersized. I think that he would be a good slot receiver for a team. And I think that, I don't think he should be a first-round pick. If I'm being 100% honest, where did he go? Where did he go?
No, it's fair. It's a very
he went to
fair.
Boston College, and it's not that he went to Boston College. Stav, what state do we live in?
Yeah. It's not.
Have we ever fucking cared or heard about fucking Zay Flowers? Now, we went to a Boston College game. I told you he is the best player on the team. I completely understand that he's the best player on that team. I think he's a great player. I think that he should be an early second rounder. And he's going to find his way in the teens. That's the best part, because I could see him going to a New England. I think that the trade between the Jets and the Packers moved up 2 spots. Who did they jump? The New England Patriots. Both of those teams need wide receivers. I can almost guarantee either someone like a Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame, gets taken by the Packers with that pick. If not, put all your money that you have on a wide receiver getting taken with that pick. I do want to say I love Jalen Hyatt in this draft. I think we're sleeping on Tennessee guys, but I think that he is truly a talented guy and receiver. People have Jackson Smith and Jigba falling into the late 20s. That's just not going to happen.
I think that by the end of the rookie or after this upcoming season, I hate looking this far ahead, but I think that we're going to look back and be like, how the hell did Jalen Hyatt fall to the 4th round? Because that's right now where he's like 3rd, 4th round. That's where he's projected to go. And he probably had the best season until injuries happened between Hendon Hooker, whoever.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Seahawks have the 20th pick, and you think that the Seahawks don't need receivers because they have Tyler Lockett and DK. Tyler Lockett's on his way out. He's getting older. This, in my opinion, is a great year. I do want to talk about the 20th pick just real quick. I think with the 20th pick, this is a great year to take a wide receiver. Because like we all said, there's not a wide receiver one, but you can get hopefully not a Quentin Johnston at that point, but maybe someone like a Zay Flowers if he falls, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs from UNC, who not a lot of people have heard about, but trust me, he is good. And if you want to talk about another Tennessee wide receiver, Cedric Tillman is also, insane. I would love to see a wide receiver taken there. If not, I would love to address our issues in the secondary with that next pick, with the 20th pick. I would say if I were to rank how bad I want all these players with the 20th pick, Brian Branch is probably my number one option from Alabama. A lot of people have him going in the 2nd round, actually. I think that he's the best safety in the draft, and he will be the first safety taken in the draft. There's not a lot of safeties in this draft. There's a lot of corners. But I think that Brian Branch is one of those guys that is a do-it-all safety. He will help in the run game. He will help in the pass game. He'll guard a tight end. He can guard receivers. He can really do it all. He plays with a lot of emotion. I think that, that would benefit us a lot. And I even think that a system where we integrate him in with Jamal Adams, with Quandre Diggs, that would be, an awesome defense to watch. He could be our nickel for a little bit until he kind of finds his way into it. AKA, by finding your way into it, I mean when Jamal Adams goes down within the first couple of drives in our third preseason game. We're going to need a safety. We are going to need a safety at some point. If we don't address our safety issues, maybe someone like a Joey Porter from Penn State falls to us, or another corner to solidify that young corner room. Because I would just love to have Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, and then draft a rookie right here. Those are our corners for the next 10 years. There you go. Now we don't have to worry about it. That's kind of the route that I want to go with this draft. And it's a route that the Seahawks should go with. You can call it playing safe, but when you're, in control of a multi-billion-dollar organization, I think that safe should always be the correct move. I want to see defense get taken in this draft. I hope it gets addressed. If we get an edge and we get I would be happy with 2 defensive linemen in the first round. I'd be happy with a defensive lineman and a secondary, and I'd be happy with a defensive lineman and maybe an offensive weapon in the first round. Those are kind of my because we have 2 picks. Those are how I kind of want those to go in this draft stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair assumption. And like I said, bringing back that defensive style of football in Seattle, that's going to help you when it comes down to let's really look at it. The NFC West, it's between the Seahawks and the 49ers. And I really do think with what's going on in San Francisco right now at the quarterback position, that the Seahawks, if they have an impressive regular season and can really solidify the defensive side of the ball, they can compete to win that division. I'm not really looking at the Rams right now. I'm not really looking at the Cardinals at all. I've already said what I had to say. And that wraps up draft talk. Let's get to NBA play.
And let's do it. And as always, we're going to start with our beloved Boston Celtics, who won at Atlanta in Game 4, 129-121. Stav, we talked last week about the first 2 games and about going into Atlanta, what might happen. I feel like we kind of had it on the dot. If anything were to happen, they'd win a game. And here we go, Game 5 at the TD Garden tonight. At the night of this recording, the boys could lock it up, and I guess we'll start things right there. Will, I'm going to ask you the question that we all want to hear the same answer to. Game 5 tonight at 7:30 in the TD Garden. What's happening?
Celtics are absolutely dismantling them. I'm taking the spread. I think it's -13. I think they blow them out. I honestly don't think there's a chance. The crowd's going to be there in Boston. Celtics are going to play up. They want to move on. They want to get out of this series as quick as possible because they're looking at, I believe, it's Miami Bucks, or no, it's a 76ers series, right?
76ers. So we're
76 series. Yeah, so I think it's in their best interest to be in the driver's seat as long as they possibly can be. Get out early, get some rest, move on because you got a whole lot of basketball left to play. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, exactly. And Stav, we heard big news after Game 4 that DeJounte Murray would be out for Game 5. We talked about him on the last episode. We kind of talked about, we were kind of going off on Trae Young. We're not a big fans of Trae Young on this podcast. Trae Young had a great last couple of games, in my opinion, though. But with DeJounte Murray being out, Will mentioned that the spread was at 13 points. Does this mean that they have absolutely no chance in this game with DeJounte Murray? Do you think that Trae Young could pull something out of his bag?
No. I'm on board with what Will said. And to be honest, I would be on board with what Will said even if DeJounte Murray was playing. DeJounte Murray's a good player, but he doesn't move the needle in favor of the Hawks too much to the point where they can come back and win this game on the road. And what we saw Friday night with the Hawks winning at home in Game 3, they were excellent. That was the best game they could possibly play. And it really came down to miscues on the Celtics end, which did them in and made them lose Game 3. We expected this. I think we said our series predictions: the Celtics win in 5. And the NBA doesn't want to sweep. They hate sweeps, so that's why we see what we're going to see. Celtics are going to close it out on their home court, and they're probably going to win by 20 points.
Yeah, and so going based off this, the over-under set at 231.5. I do want to mention that the whole playoffs, not just this series, but pretty much every series has been an under series. There's been a lot of defense in this series, or in this year's NBA playoffs. And I do want to say that a big focal point, I feel like, of teams is rebounding. And I feel like Biggs is a big focal point as well. I don't think that giving Robert Williams extended minutes in this game would be a good idea. But say, we cut a couple minutes off of Rob Will. Stav, who is a guy that you are expecting to, be our guy on the boards? And obviously Jason Tatum, I think, is leading our team in rebounds. So I'd prefer if maybe we don't talk about Jason Tatum here, but who's someone that we are genuinely going to need on the boards in this game? Because it has been crucial to grab rebounds.
I think this might go without saying. If we're not going to talk about Rob Will, it has to be Al Horford. And Al Horford's the perfect veteran leader to do what we need him to do at this point in his career. He hasn't really looked the best up to this point in this series, but we need him on the glass. He's going to be the 5. And obviously, like you said, I'm not going to talk about Jason Tatum. However, I really do think that guys like Jaylen Brown, we need our guards to crash the boards because their guards aren't rebounding, especially now that DeJounte Murray, who's one of the better rebounding guards, is going to be out. Guards need to crash the boards. Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, maybe even Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, different positions. Maybe we even see little Mike Muscala or Grant Williams get involved in this. We haven't really seen much of them in this series. I do kind of expect Grant Williams to get some run in Game 5, especially with different matchups, because Bogdanovich is probably going to start for Atlanta with DeJounte Murray being out, who Bogdanovich rips us apart all the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see, but Celtics are going to win this game pretty handily. I'm ready to move on about this. There's not much to say.
Yeah, and I just have one more question for Will real quick. Stav, you mentioned the bench a little bit here, but same thing here, same parameters. Like I said, Stav can't talk about Tatum. Will, you can't talk about Malcolm Brogdon. What's one guy coming off the bench in Game 5 that you're really expecting something from?
Let's see. There is a lot of players like you could. It really depends on how they're going to kind of throw, because obviously you have to come into the mindset that the Atlanta Hawks are going to obviously try to win the series, even though in my head at this point there really is no point of them trying to win this game and trying to move on and win the series. I mean, I feel like someone like a Sam Hauser is just a guy that you're going to want to see out there, kind of set the tone, make his threes, and honestly put the dagger in them off the bench. There's really no one else to really pick. I mean, can't really say Grant. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of minutes. I don't really expect too much from him. There's no really reason for him to play. He might play a little bit more just to kind of get him going again. But the way the Hawks have been playing us, Sam Hauser's actually kind of been that guy out there making his shots and doing his thing. He's actually been playing pretty well, which is, I mean, he's kind of done this thing all season long, but like especially come playoff time, you can't really expect the world from someone like him, but he's doing his job, so can't really complain too much there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of 3-1 leads in the NBA right now. I think obviously the Sixers have moved on, but I think that the only other matchup that's not 3-1 is Kings Warriors. It's 2-2. Is that correct? Or is there another one that's 2-2? I think everything else is 3-1 right now. Perfect leading me on to my next question. There's a few 3-1 leads that we've seen the lower seed go up 3-1. In Stav, I just, specifically talking obviously the Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies, and then also Knicks Cavs. The lower seed is up in that. And then the Heat Milwaukee Bucks series. Out of those 3 series, the higher seeds are down 3-1. What team do you think is most likely to come back from being down 3-1 in the first round?
I feel like I have to say the Milwaukee Bucks. Now that Giannis is back, he's kind of in the back of the flow of things. I'm not saying I'm expecting them to come back, because a 3-1 deficit is really hard to overcome. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of those guys who can really will a team, and the surrounding pieces can step up and elevate their games. And if you want to break it down game by game, I assume the Bucks were going to win Game 5. You get 3-2. You just have to win one road game in Miami, which I'm not saying that's easy.
It is. Fuck Miami.
But yeah, fuck Miami, fuck their fans. I really don't think it's a hostile environment. I just think that certain guys on that team only play well at home.
Agreed.
And whatever may happen, then you force a game 7, then you have that at home. But if you look at other teams, I think the Memphis Grizzlies are dead. I think that they're dead in the water. That was their chance to even the series yesterday. They blew their chance. And Dylan Brooks is really an idiot, and he probably is going to get cut this offseason for what he's doing. He's more of a distraction. He holds them back more so than elevates their performance. I don't think the Clippers can come back just because of their injuries. Russell Westbrook is balling out. Shout out him. The Timberwolves, I really hope the Nuggets blow the 3-0 lead. That would be hilarious. I would die laughing because they were supposed to cover the spread and win the series, but they didn't. I just hope they lose the series outright now, which would be hilarious, but it's probably not going to happen. So what am I missing? That's it, right?
You went through all those series. And speaking of that Bucks Heat series, in my opinion, it has developed into, even though it's a 3-1 series, I agree with you. I don't think that this series ends on Wednesday night. I think that there's absolutely no chance that Milwaukee loses that game. But I do want to talk about Jimmy Butler's Game 4 performance. He put on a performance for the ages. I was watching with my roommate last night, and it was one of those moments like watching basketball where he throws up a shot and it genuinely he just did not miss. And he went, late in the fourth, he went back to back. He came down the court, hit a sidestep 3, got the ball back, and then hit another step back that ended up being a 2 after review. Thought it was a 3. And Jimmy Butler, just the whole game, he finished with 56 points. He had 9 rebounds, only 2 assists, shooting 19 of 28, super efficient from the field, took a boatload of free throws as well. And Jimmy Butler is obviously the key to beating the Milwaukee Bucks in this series. But looking at the other side of this Milwaukee Bucks team, Giannis obviously comes back from injury, has a 26-point triple-double. Chris Middleton is, there, I guess. Brook Lopez is by far their second best player on their team. And Will, we were in PlayStation chat the other night, and Darren brought up the idea that he wants to see Milwaukee against the Celtics, Milwaukee fully healthy, just to settle those rumors. I said I'd take a ring if we were playing against William Pappas, but this Bucks team with Chris Middleton, do you what are your thoughts on this? Because that's been the talk, Will, for the past years. Every time we meet Milwaukee, they don't have Chris Middleton. How much of an effect does that guy really have at this point in his career?
I want to say, I think if Miami wins this series, which they should, I think that says enough about who they are with Chris Middleton alone. I think right then and there, he's been out every single playoffs. He's been hurt every single year. Same timeline. It feels like you could break it down to the same day every single year. He comes back the same time. He gets hurt the same way. It's the same story on and on and on again. Yes, for the entertainment purposes, I would love to see a healthy Bucks Celtics series battle. That's going to be awesome. Electric, you can't really that's something a fan would love to see. At the end of the day, yes, Chris Middleton's a good player. Yes, he makes that team much better. But I think in those crucial moments when he's just not there, I think we talked about this last year in the same predicament, where the nights that Chris Middleton isn't there, or Chris Middleton is there and Giannis isn't, Chris Middleton kind of steps up. But the nights that they're both there, it's almost like two heads are clashing at the same time. It really could go either way, who's going to kind of go off. And they kind of if Giannis, let's say he's not doing his best, kind of slows down his game like Chris Middleton in the driver's seat later on in the game, he kind of does his thing. I think being away from a team like this for so long, I don't think they have that chemistry to kind of do that sort of back and forth kind of thing that they were doing in years past, where let's say Giannis wasn't having his greatest game, Chris Middleton comes in and has an amazing fourth quarter and vice versa. I just don't think that's where they're at anymore. They're going to lose this series, and I think it's going to take a toll on the locker room. I think there's going to be a big change up going into the future because they did just sign Giannis on a big deal. He wants to be in contention. Losing to the first round to the Miami Heat, possibly 4-1, is not the look you want.
Yeah, I agree. And not only Chris Middleton has been underperformed, but in my opinion, Drew Holiday, he had a couple of big games, but I don't think he's doing what he needs to be doing. And especially last night. I don't remember his exact stat line he put up. One thing that I do remember was that somebody in this room that I am in, and I'm the only person in this room, had Drew Holiday over 18.5 points. He was at like 4 points at halftime. I don't even know what he finished with. I didn't even look. Threw it away. He's kind of been a wash for me. And it goes to my point, Brook Lopez, not only has he been the second best player on this team, he has looked like almost amazing, in this series. And it goes up with matchups and things like that. But guess what? Miami's up 3-1. They have the perfect chance to end it. If they don't end it on the road, they have another home game. So perfect for them. It's going to be an interesting road. And the next time that we talk to you guys, it'll be the second round. So we will see what happens from there. But we got a lot of basketball to watch until then. We have, 7 new players coming to every NFL team being drafted, and a boatload of undrafted free agents on their way as well. We're getting back into the swing of things. We will talk about baseball in the next episode too. Hockey, NHL is still in the playoffs. We're going to have to talk about that soon. We are back. Everything is back. College basketball, there's even still stuff going around in there. The transfer portal has been nuts. A lot of stuff going on. But that's going to do it for this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed. And we will catch you guys next time. Peace.